Hello and happy Wellness Wednesday. I hope this finds you doing very, very well. Happy December. My name is Robin Lee. I am a medical intuitive and live in Southern California. The first Wednesday of every month, I love sharing a recording of a special message to be able to help you stay focused and inspired when it comes to creating a life that you love and being able to heal your body, mind, and spirit. Living with intention is one of, I think, the most powerful, most important reminders we could ever have. And heading into this incredibly busy holiday season for a lot of us, really creating an intention and focusing on what it is that you're wanting to experience is such an important root or seed to carry while you're in your experience of life. As you're saying yes to commitments, as you're moving forward, take some time and space before you commit to things to be really clear on what you would like to experience. It is such an important thing because so much about the holidays for a lot of people can be based on autopilot, habits, routines, traditions, and a lot of times I think there's a heaviness that I've noticed. I've noticed with my clientele, the month of December, it can be a lot of depression that I'm working with clients, a lot of anxiety, a lot of immune system issues. And people say, well, that's just part of the holidays. But for me, I like exploring what makes it that way. Why in September, October are we feeling joyful and now we're feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and pressured for this beautiful month of December? So I wanted to spend some time with you, just kind of breaking some of this down for a few minutes so that you can remind yourself to be conscious and remind yourself to be mindful of before you say yes to commitments, break them down. Think about what's going to be required of you. Ask yourself if you have the energy and the time to devote in that way, and do your best not to go into an autopilot response. The amount of people that I'll be working with this season where they'll talk to me about the stress that they're having about feeling restricted or feeling anxious going into family gatherings. And as we break it down and we connect into what are we wanting to experience? Oftentimes there's just silence on the other phone line, right? And it just is a silent feeling of, oh, maybe we're anxious that we're going to feel the same that we felt in the past that we didn't like. Maybe we have a relative or a friend that's really difficult. That's okay. So, how do you create joy in the moments, or how do you create whatever you're intending instead of just living on autopilot? I remember years ago, I was working with a very beautiful client of mine, and she was telling me how much stress she was feeling inside because the big family dinner is always at her house, and there's tradition, and she's making this food and this food, and it's set up a certain way. And I said, who made the rules? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, you're feeling so anxious. Perhaps that means something's off. And it's time to honor you, and it's time to honor how you're actually feeling about something. She said, I never thought about it like that. She started talking about all the list of things she needed to do. But she didn't really want to do those things. And she said, I just don't understand how I can be free of this. And I said, just be honest and ask for people to show up differently. Make a list of things that you don't want to do anymore. Make a list of things that you don't want to do this year. It doesn't even have to do anymore. And allow yourself to ask for help. Ask as a group how we can do it differently to establish more joy and to establish more connection. She was talking about how people would come and they didn't really bring food and they expected to be kind of fed. And I said, well, yeah, it's been set up like that. And she said she's so exhausted, she'll spend days cooking, and then everybody eats, and then there's this pile of dishes. And I said, oh, had it occurred to you to ask beforehand? Delegate some things? And Ask if the traditions are really settling well for you anymore. And what she was able to conclude was what was important to her was that everybody gathered together. And all the other details didn't matter so much to her. So she started asking everybody in her group what mattered to them and if they were willing to show up and provide what was important to them. I got a phone call after. What a magical time was had. How everybody was so fun and laid back. She had energy and there was no stress, but she did have guilt. And we were able to work on that next. And that's the coolest thing is I think a lot of times we're just on repeat. It happened to me already. People are like, oh, are you having the party you always have? And the answer is no, I'm not. And they're like, oh my gosh, why not? Because I have a training for 10 days in December, and then it's my birthday, and I don't have time that's going to feel stress-free to do that. So I said, I'm happy to have my place available or the situation available, but we need to do other things differently because I have the same tendency of come and enjoy and have fun, and I don't delegate sometimes. So for me, it becomes an all or nothing until it finds a balanced point. So my answer for that was no. However, we could find a balanced point to be able to help bring people together. And that is the thing is, what do you want to receive from your experiences? And if it's not feeling like that, what do you need to take off your plate or do differently to be able to create more joy, more magic, more love in your life this beautiful holiday season? It is such an important thing. There's so much anxiety I see people walk through, and then they find this relief after the fact. But the whole part of the month is this stressed experience, but they look back and they see the joy. Imagine if you could create joy as you're moving through this experience. How can you make the holidays easier for you? How can you make them more joyful? How can you make them more full of love? What do you want them to be? That becomes the question. What do you want to experience through them? You matter, and you get to design the life that you get to live. Because if you're saying yes to things on autopilot, you've been through so much this year. You might not feel like doing the same stuff you did last year. You might not have the same energy reserves. You might have more. The thing is check in. And to me, that's the beauty of the consistent holidays, is it lets me look at the growth that I've had. It lets me look at why this doesn't feel like it creates joy when it did last year. How can I keep reestablishing that? How can I adjust and connect in and hold the traditions that bring me so much joy? For me, my biggest tradition is getting people together. During the holiday season, I love seeing all my friends together. During the holiday season, I love cultivating the feeling of love and connection because a lot of my friends don't have significant others, they don't have parents, they don't have siblings. So to be able to have that space where year after year we feel this beautiful bond forming is such a powerful gift to give to my friends and most importantly to myself. But it doesn't mean it has to look the same exact way that it's always looked. So perhaps where I would normally have everybody come to my house, I might not have the time and the energy to clean my house, to prep my house, to clean after. We might end up meeting somewhere new. I haven't figured it out yet. But I've had a save the date go out, and I just don't know what that's going to look like. And as it forms and it connects, it's such liberation that happens inside from a point of creating peace and love in my life. Now, you pick what you want to create. You pick what you want to hold on to and have the courage to move through the guilt of asking for help and of doing things differently. That's the beautiful thing, is we're meant to do things differently that don't resonate for us. And I think there's so much that's assumed we stay focused on tradition. When it doesn't vibrate or connect anymore, it's time to remove that, to move through that, to put it on the table, to see if anybody else wants to pick that up. And we can create what's new for us with where we are in our heart, in our mind, and in our own personal process. We've all grown so much the last year. It's safe to assume we probably are going to want to do some things differently. And people will call me up when it comes to anxiety and they want to get rid of their anxiety. One of my favorite things is to really enjoy exploring and helping people explore why they feel anxious. Because I'll tell you, anxiety is a very strong voice for most people that something isn't right, that we've taken on too much, and that we need to stop and reset. So ideally, we think this through before we commit, but sometimes we commit and then we figure it out the hard way. That doesn't mean that we can't ask for help and do things differently. So allow yourself to change this holiday season. Allow yourself to anchor into connecting into what feels good and supportive for you. And ask for help and ask for support along the way. Give yourself permission to do things different so that you can allow yourself to create more joy than you've ever had this holiday season. And what a beautiful way that can anchor into creating more joy than ever in the upcoming year ahead. I love that for this holiday season. So I wanted to take the time to make this a priority and share with you as I have. Share below, comment, share with friends that you know are having a hard time this holiday season. Allow them to be curious about how they can do something differently and understand that guilt and tradition oftentimes hold hands. So make sure that the traditions make sense. Make sure they feel good and expansive, and if not, have the courage to do things very differently this year. That will anchor you into the new year in a whole different creative process to allow you to be set up for more success and peace of heart, tremendous joy for the new year forward. You are so worthy of that. But post below, share things, the traditions that don't bring you joy, that you're willing to do differently this year. I want to see. My goodness, we have transformed our holidays over and again. The biggest catalyst for us as a family personally was when my dad died. My dad loved Christmas. My dad loved the holidays. He loved putting people together. But I will tell you, getting together with Christmas the first year my dad wasn't alive was one of the most painful things to work through. And it was because he wasn't there. There was this emptiness. So I was trying to do things the same way that we've always had, but there was this huge gap in our experience and that huge hole in our hearts because we were missing my dad. So we learned to do things very differently. And then there was divorce for me. My goodness, did that change things? There was years on, years off. I would have one of my kids for Christmas morning and I wouldn't, or Christmas Eve and I wouldn't. If I would have kept trying to shove it in a box, I can't imagine the pain that would have caused. And being able to stop and adapt and being able to express why this is so important, what makes this so important, and redefining things for myself, I think was one of the biggest gifts I could have given my family, both my own personal little family, but extended family, through this whole process of life. Big changes mean traditions often change. Big changes mean things oftentimes need to change to create more harmony and love. Allow yourself to rekindle the love and the joy that you want to create. Allow yourself to do things differently this year. If you find this year you're complaining about the same old, move forward next year in a very different way. And remember, you can always do it differently. Show up in a pure, positive heart space. If you have that aunt that's a pain, that's okay. How can you create joy with her this holiday season? How can you just do it a little bit, if not a lot more different? You're going to see that you're capable of showing up in a different light, and it's going to make all the difference of the world. Happy Wellness Wednesday. If you're not currently subscribed, please subscribe below. The first Wednesday of the month, I post a video, and I love to see the responses. I love to see the shares, and I love to bring light into people's lives because healing is about understanding what it's all about to heal. It oftentimes isn't what we think. It's oftentimes very different than we think. So it's giving ourselves permission to change as we go through change, because we're not the same people we were a year ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. This year, my kids and I said, how are we going to do it differently? Because it started creating stress for one of them. How do we do it differently? And I love how we've created it to be different this coming year. I'm excited to see how it plays out. And I'm a little nervous. And I think that's a normal part of the process when we learn to listen to and honor people around us. Pay attention. Pay attention when our friends are feeling stressed. Have these important conversations. And let's give each other permission to do things differently so that we can be in alignment with what feels really good to us inside, because we deserve to enjoy this season and spread love so much faster than we've ever spread it before. We need it as a community. We need it in our families. And let's have the courage to do it. Big, big, big hugs. Happy holiday season to you. See you in the new year.